covered may be graphic in nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely it's really
Just, I love stories like this because it's
people scared to death.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
There are countless stories bad enough sex
People that you shouldn't fuck with.
Right, and the JFK assassination limo.
Real.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. From the Mistake on the Lake, deep within the Great American Rust Belt, this is T3TV. I'm your host, John Baczynski, alongside my faithful co-host, Dan Rady.
What is up?
And Steve Buddha Gibson.
So,
not much. How are you guys doing tonight?
doing
Feeling
good.
cold.
Good. Feeling cold.
It is cold. What is it, like negative? Is it in the negatives yet, or is it right around?
No,
No,
I
it's-
think it's
no, it's
around
not there
20s,
yet.
right?
Yeah, yesterday was colder.
Yeah, it was cold.
It was
as
like
shit,
8 degrees yesterday.
Yeah, and the snowstorm. It wasn't as bad as I thought the news was making it out to be. But I was planning on a foot of snow, but didn't happen around here. At least not by me.
I was over on the east side, and we got substantially more snow by us than we did even right by the lake.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
Well, and Dan, you work from home, so you're not affected. When's the last time you've actually physically left the house?
2 days ago.
Really? Grocery
Yeah.
store?
Yeah. Well, no, I did a hike.
Oh, right on.
Yep, in the snow.
All right. Well, you guys ready to do for some news?
Yeah.
All right. So, big news of today, obviously, Mars lands Perseverance. It's for the mission. The mission goals are to search for signs of life by gathering soil and rock. And so, Perseverance officially landed. In other news, Buddha, this one's going to get you going. CNN has banned Chris Cuomo from covering his brother due to all the allegations.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so
I mean, they're both fucking useless anyway. But
yeah, just funny that they're telling him he can't cover his brother. He was getting free good press. You know what I mean?
I don't understand, first of all, how Andrew Cuomo is not in prison. And second of all, if you've ever seen Chris Cuomo actually interview Andrew Cuomo, they bicker like school children on national TV. It's just pathetic.
Oh, but so yeah, he's not covering his brother, and that's that. Dan, this one's for you. It says General Motors shares have nearly tripled since March. The company beat analysis expectations, and it reported a fourth quarter profit of $2.8 billion. GM promises to swear off fossil fuels. It's going to take 14 years, and Ford said that by 2030, all of its passenger cars in Europe will run solely on batteries. Also, Jaguar Land Rover said Monday that all of its luxury cars and 60% of the Land Rover luxury SUVs would run solely on batteries by 2030. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize like that. Realistically, within 8 to 10 years, we probably won't see gas stations be as they are now. I mean, I can't imagine what a fuel station would be like, 10 to 12 years from now.
Well, yeah, I've been keeping up on a lot of what you just mentioned there. Well, I mean, here's the thing. There's going to be millions of people that are not going to transfer over to electric cars anytime soon. So even though, a lot of people will buy them, but you're going to have millions of people that are not going to transition, and gas stations, we're going to still see gasoline engines for a long time afterward. New cars going forward will be electric, but I think that'll be a long time out. You'll still see gas stations for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
I mean,
For sure.
Go ahead. No.
I would say, especially because like in, there's just certain areas of the country that it's just not feasible for them to just completely abandon,
Right.
the whole combustion engine thing and just flip. The infrastructure isn't even there for it. That's like saying, let's go to the middle of West Virginia or even the middle of Pennsylvania or even Ohio and go, okay, yeah, you 1,000 people that live here in your tiny ass town, you all no longer have gas. Now you can only use an electric car.
Yeah,
and they're going to like, what the hell are you talking about?
I mean, do you think that it can be done? I mean, they're setting the goal of, 10 to 12 years from now. Can that be phased out in 10 to 12 years? And I do agree with you, Dan. Like, I mean, we're still going to see these cars, but how long before you see like less than, a couple million cars run on fossil fuel in the country? That's
yeah, that'll be probably 20 years after 2035, because these new cars will last a long time that are coming out now, the combustion engines now. And I remember, if you remember that first episode we did when we came back, I talked about electric cars, and exactly what Buddha just said is what I said. The infrastructure is not even close to being there. The electrical grid system is completely antiquated. The entire thing is years and years out. And the car companies, I won't get too far, I know you got other stuff to go over, but the car companies are aggressively moving toward this, which is fine, but they're moving toward, if I can talk, towards.
Oh my goodness.
They're moving to that pace. They're moving that pace very quickly, where everything else is not going to that pace. The infrastructure is not going to be ready in 15 years, I don't think, when you talk thousands and millions of miles of power grids and things like that, and gas stations and apartments. People live in apartments. They don't have, what are you going to do? You're going to have to put electrical outlets in every single parking spot.
Yeah, good point. So, all right. Well, let's see here. Another thing I saw, we're switching over here to more of an entertainment side. Did you guys check out the new Mortal Kombat trailer that came out
I actually
today?
sent that to your brother today.
I
What
did
do you
not
think?
see that.
It kind of
caught
looks,
my attention, at least.
the original one doesn't hold up at all, in my opinion. Like, I watched
But for
it.
the time, it was fantastic.
Oh, yes, and we were also 10, 11.
Well, then there you go.
But I will say, it looks cool, but it also kind of looks B-movie-ish too. I don't know. So
Do the
But
characters
I think
look like the original?
the production quality is great. Like
Okay.
I think from what I saw in the trailer, like the production quality is great. They definitely cast a lot of like no-name people, but I think they were talking about doing that on purpose.
well, yeah, and I
because
think
that's
cool,
kind
too.
of what killed. I don't think you can cast. In my opinion, I don't think it makes sense to cast like A-list people for stuff like video games or movie like adaptations of novels unless they are like 1,000% spot
Dude,
on.
the original Liu Kang was
Robin
100%.
Shu. Yeah.
100% spot on though. Also, Beverly Hills Ninja.
Okay. Yes.
But
Nathan,
I was gonna say
sorry.
the Sub-Zero effects look pretty killer. I will say that.
The one thing I was confused is that was Scorpion in the beginning, but he didn't have his mask on. So I wonder if they're going to explain that like he's not like a dude, like a normal dude. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
I don't know.
Isn't he supposed to be kind of like demonic too? Or like
I don't know if he's like technically a demon or a devil or like, I don't know anyone that really follows Mortal Kombat lore, but from what I remember from the games, he wasn't just like some normal guy.
Right. Okay.
One of the things I know that would have been a really, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, would have been like a really, really great cast was Nathan Fillion as Drake from the Uncharted series.
Yeah, what did they
Not
get?
Drake,
Tom
son of a
Holland.
bitch. Yeah, they did, but it's actually not. It's not following the games. I think it was like a prequel or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it's something where it's like it's not following the games. But I don't know if you played them or like they're fantastic, and the way that they play it is like a movie. And everything Naughty Dog does is great. But Nathan Fillion did like it was like a the fuck I'm trying to say, like he made like a short film of it. And I don't know, it was like 10 minutes long or something. And it was like really well done. So then a bunch of people were like, man, like this needs to happen. You need to cast him. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to make an Uncharted movie. And then they just had nothing to do with him. So,
Kind of like
but
that Mortal Kombat trailer from like 10 years ago. Remember they made like a short movie that kind of got everyone all.
Oh yeah, I thought that was fan made. Well, actually, that's what this was. It was fan made.
This was too, but yeah. But
Remember the original Sonic that came last year? That
Let's not.
Sonic movie.
I, from what I hear, it was actually pretty good.
No, the one that came out, but the original trailer that came out of it.
Oh yeah,
The thing
was,
had like 400 teeth in its mouth.
Yeah, everyone was not happy about that.
It was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
In other entertainment news, Buddha, this is, I know, your favorite part of the show. Meghan Markle's due date is sooner than we thought.
Well, once again, now I can sleep easy.
And last thing on entertainment, Kim Kardashian is extremely stressed out amid Kanye West divorce rumors.
Oh,
There you have it, folks. All right.
I can sleep better too now.
One thing that I did want to not even talk about, but just mention, anybody that is into the audio stuff, Rupert Neve passed away this week.
Really?
Or last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who
I
was-
think he was
who was that
94.
Rupert
Rupert Neve.
He owned Neve. They make consoles and preamps and all kinds of.
Basically, they were the guys that were one of the big time guys back in the day from all the audio stuff coming up with the Neve consoles and everything.
Gotcha.
Moving forward after that. But yeah, like I said, I think he was 94.
Yeah, like if you had a Neve console in your studio, you were like top dog.
Wow.
Yeah, it says he died on the 12th.
No shit. That's crazy. I mean, you got to think we've lost Larry King, Rush Limbaugh, Rupert Neve, like all these,
Speaking of which,
pioneers
I'm sorry,
of
John.
different types of mediums.
Real quick, does this boggle your guys' mind that Larry King, you just brought Larry King up. I just had to say this. They said his net, now that guy's been on the air for what, 40 years, 50 years, something like that. His
Long
net
time.
worth was $2 million.
I
You
saw
know
it was
how
3.
Do you know how many
Oh, okay,
divorces
well-
he had?
5, right?
He had
Wasn't it like 4 or
several
5?
divorces, yeah. That's
just
where it all-
compared to Rush Limbaugh, who had, he had a couple marriages, but he had a net worth of $500 million. It's just crazy.
Well, Rush, a lot of it had to do with syndication of his radio show. And so he was on almost 600 stations, and those stations paid to broadcast that show.
I just saw.
Well, I
just thought
don't
he'd
think
be
they pay to broadcast, but I think they earn money from the ads generated while running the show. So,
Yeah, not that I would have a problem with getting $3 million, but I mean, it's just, I would have thought that man would have been worth $15-20 million. But I guess you're right. I guess the divorces can screw you up.
yeah.
I just saw something saying that his by 2010 King's final year, his contract was worth $56 million and his net worth was estimated at $144 million. And then it talked about, well, this isn't really that helpful of an article, because then it had talked about his kids dividing up $50 million. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But yeah, that is kind of crazy. But then you also hear about how many like athletes and shit just squander their money.
And they go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
MC Hammer.
Oh, man.
So in UFO news, it says UFO hotbed state right now is Maine. It says, I'm looking here at a chart, it says with reports stretching back to 1946, one of the highest recorded years for reports of UFOs in Maine was 2012 with 103 reports filed. But, in the 46 years that, the past 40 years have had over 1,000 reports of UFOs. So just a weird little tidbit there I saw this week. And then this day in history, we didn't do it last week, so I'm going to do it today. Let's see. The big headline on history.com this day in history was Mark Twain publishes The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Some other side notes from this day in history. In 2010, WikiLeaks publishes the first documents leaked by Chelsea Manning. 2011, the Green River serial killer pleads guilty to 49th murder. Somebody's typing in the background.
Not I.
Go on.
Let's see. 1930, Pluto was discovered. And in another art and entertainment news, 1929, the first Academy Awards announced. So February 18th, not a big day in world history. So
Well, I mean, the Chelsea Manning stuff is kind of a big day.
But I'm saying, like, the last time I did, there was like, a
bunch of stuff.
Yeah, 50 bullet points to that day. There was not many on this one.
Well, if we're going to keep it real, nobody wants to go outside in February.
True that. Let's see here. And then, one other story I had that was kind of interesting was there's a team of scientists that are getting people to talk in their sleep. They're training them how to dream lucidly, and then they are getting them to talk about certain things in their sleep that maybe they wouldn't necessarily talk about during their day. So kind of like a hypnosis state kind of deal.
Can we touch on something completely unrelated at the fact that Facebook literally like banned Australia almost in its entirety, all news pages, like fire and rescue emergency pages, government pages, because they were like, hey, Facebook, you're using our content and you should probably pay us for that. And Facebook went, oh, you think so? Fuck you. And literally banned all their shit.
Wow. I did not hear that.
Well,
fucking crazy.
But who was posting it?
No, Facebook was essentially, you know how Facebook will share like news and shit? Like, you need to see the news, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So they were taking all of the content from like all of the different news pages, just like it would normally. And basically those news outlets were like, hey, you're using our content, for your gain. You should probably pay us because we made the content.
Right.
And Facebook basically said, fuck you. So instead of just getting rid of those news pages, they actually banned people from being able to share those news outlets as well and news stories.
I mean,
wow.
They might just back themselves into a corner and then people will just start checking out on the mass. You know what I mean?
You mean Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, people are, yeah. We were talking about that the other week. A lot of people are.
I wouldn't be surprised if they experience like a mass exodus at some point.
I was reading that most people on Facebook are like 18 to 35. I was reading this a couple weeks back. Like most people on Facebook now are old people. Like it's not, and I say older than me even. Like people in their 50s and 60s are not. It's not the young, hip, cool thing to do anymore. So it probably will start dropping over the next decade or so. I would think maybe.
Yeah. Good riddance.
Yeah, agreed. All I do is talk shit anyway.
Yeah, speaking of which, you and Sherrod Brown.
Dude, Sherrod Brown, one of the most useless individuals ever on the fucking planet, especially in Ohio, has the fucking nerve to come out and say politicians need a backbone. Oh, I'll talk all night, but but that dude is
do you
just
have any of your
trash.
do you have any of your posts?
Do I? Oh, I have the one where I said, why does Sherrod Brown look like the dude picked out his suit the night before and then went to bed and then just rolled out of bed and went to work? Like he literally looks like he sleeps in his clothes and then just goes to work.
I've noticed that, and his hair used to really be like a mess, but now it's like shorter. But
yeah,
I just like I only see on my news feed what you say. I haven't really looked and dug into it, but are people getting behind what you're saying, or?
It's hit or miss. It kind of depends. I trash talk DeWine a lot too, and I get a lot of feedback from that sometimes. But
really,
yeah, he's absolute fucking trash. Actually, I don't know. In Ohio news, Senate Bill 22 did pass the Senate. Not that it matters because Ohio representatives are pretty fucking useless, but they basically have a veto-proof majority in the Senate. So what that does is it limits the governor's power and whatever appointed fuckwad he wants to use for his health emergencies. It's brought back to the legislation. So pretty much he can't come out and swing his dick around and say, I'm the boss, this is what you do. It would fall to the legislation. So it was proposed a couple months ago, and he just vetoed it because he's a dipshit, and he said he would, which, whatever. So it has been brought back up again. It passed the Senate. It now needs to go to the House and pass the House, and then he'll veto it for sure, and then it'll go back for a revote. But if it gets revoted, I think it needs 60%. and then it becomes veto proof, which means if he vetoes it and then they go back and vote on it again, it becomes law. So that means that little tyrant's going to lose all his power. But the point is it's a fucking year later. You know, if you guys are going to rewrite this bill, why wouldn't you write in the ability to recall a governor? That's what I don't understand. But
Yeah.
that's enough for my political shit.
No, but it's interesting, and you make a lot of good points. I just read something the other day, or was it today, that he was talking that like some of these kids that want to go to prom are gonna be able to go to prom due to masks, and I'm like, it's really, man, like this is what we're talking about right now.
Like, I'm fucking sorry if you're one of those people that thinks that wearing 2 masks is going to save your life, you have got to be the biggest fucking moron on the planet. Like, if you want to wear a mask because you think that it makes you feel better, or it does make you feel better, and whatever, it's your choice. I don't give a shit. You can do whatever you want, but don't fucking come at me to wear a fucking mask, because not only are you wearing a mask, you're behind a fucking piece of plastic and you're over 6 feet away. All your stupid bullshit fucking regulations. Fuck off. I'm not sick. Sick people don't need to fucking quarantine themselves. It's just the dumbest, most asinine shit. I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say. The CDC came out.
I'm going to keep egging you on.
Okay,
And
John
this was-
started you, so go ahead.
Well, this is, I promise this will be the last thing. The CDC came out, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and they had talked about, we have done simulations on masks, and if you wear X kind of mask, it's 75%, and then this mask is whatever percentage. So basically what they do for their
What about a
simulations...
GIMP mask?
Oh, that's 100%. And that's 100% and a good time. Basically what it is they don't actually conduct experiments on people or studies on people wearing masks. What they do is they do a simulation. So they essentially put a mask on like a mannequin, and it's not like a literal mannequin, but just, and I'm not joking. Like, this is really what they do.
Oh dear.
And then they perform their test, quote unquote. And then they go, okay, this is the effectiveness of this. Then at the bottom of the studies, it will say, and I'm paraphrasing, these results will vary with masks, because these are the ones that we tested. We can only really kind of say that these are the results for these masks. These masks or these results can't be applied to all masks out in the world because masks vary, blah, 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 which is understandable. But then they go and follow up and say, just so you know, and I'm paraphrasing again, these are just simulations and they don't actually apply to real world situations. So, or may not apply to real world situations. So you really want to tell, you're the fucking CDC. You're supposed to be like the guys at the top that when people are concerned or scared, you go there for clarity and, maybe make you feel better and understand what you're supposed to do. And you want to sit there and go, we play fucking games with mannequins and this is what you should do. But then the disclaimer at the end is, but hey, this actually doesn't apply in the real world. Awesome. It's just unfucking real. Yeah, it's so dumb.
I mean, I got to ask this question. Is there a freaking sensor behind under the mouth? How do they know it even works if they're putting on a mannequin?
We once, where I worked, we had OSHA come in and test the air quality of like a room where we were using chemicals, and somebody did have to wear like a little bug, and that basically pulled data and tested the air quality that was present at the time over a certain amount of time. And so I believe they can do that. I mean, but at the same time, I
would hope they would do that.
I never thought in my life I would ever have to, like, you would see this stuff like on TV and go, well, that's never going to happen here. And it's happening. And it's happening like more and more. And I feel like the goalpost just keeps moving. It's like, well, we're going to get everybody vaccinated and then we should be okay. And then it's like, well, we're going to get everybody vaccinated, but you still have to do this because there might be another strain. And
there's another strain.
Right. And so, with a virus like this, like, where in human history has this not happened? This has happened many, many times throughout history. Why all of a sudden now is it being treated like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Push that agenda.
I don't know. And like you if you ask questions, like people accuse you of not believing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking the question, like, where in human history, when there's been disease and illness spread, like, yes, people quarantined during the plague. I'm sure that people were also, exiled from, villages and stuff like that. But I'm just curious, is like, with like a virus like this, I'm having a hard time. Yeah, I'm just saying,
handle it with the Spanish flu.
Well, right. That's where I'm going with, like, how is this different than any other virus or any other disease? And like at the end of it, like, look at polio. We pretty much got rid of polio. I mean, I'm sure it exists in some places on planet Earth, but between vaccinations and people just getting used to things, or herd immunity, I don't know. I'm afraid to talk about this stuff because I'm afraid that, like, somebody's going to take my words and twist it the wrong way. I'm just asking the question, like, and I feel like I'm always like riding that line of whether or not, do I go there? Do I not? Who's going to, what's going to happen if I say the wrong thing and offend somebody? Like, this line has just gotten too crazy.
Dude, you're on the internet in 2021. You will offend someone. Someone will twist your words. And at the end of the day, you're going to be a piece of shit to somebody. It doesn't matter. You're allowed to ask fucking questions. Don't feel bad for asking questions. The problem is people aren't asking questions. They're just going, oh, yeah, that's what I was told to do. Okay. Who the fuck? No, never mind. Well, you know what I'm trying to say. I just don't want to go off on another tangent.
Yeah.
Well, I truly...
Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I truly believe Buddha needs to run for office. You need to run for office, Buddha. This is the only way. I'm serious. I'm not even being an asshole. It's the only way you're going to make any. I'm not saying you're going to make a difference, but it's the only way you're going to make any. Other than just ranting on about it, you should seriously try to run for a councilman or some kind of office somewhere, and or make a YouTube channel where you come out and on film and that and say how, because I agree with a lot of stuff you say. I'm just saying you should really go out there and try to do something about it, man.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a special kind of asshole to want to be involved in politics.
You might be that one. Just saying.
You got to really hate your life.
Again, I would venture to say. No, but, and that's the thing is, like, I feel, I keep stuttering and stammering and trying to figure out how to articulate what I'm trying to say. And all I'm trying to say is that at what point is enough enough? At what point is something very similar to anything else that humans have experienced? Why are we treating this differently than anything else? And yes, I understand it's very, very serious, but were those things not as serious? And who determines how serious they are? That's where I'm going with it.
Well, I think to finish off the thought that I can without going on a tangent is you now have 20-year-old fucking kids with no medical degree censoring doctors who speak out against what the status quo is. And if that isn't eye-opening, if you don't have even the fucking interns and kids that work at Google, the kids that work at Facebook, all of that shit that you had coming out where doctors were signing fucking, letters and petitions stating, hey, this is how I've been treating COVID. Thousands. I'm not talking about like 4 or 5 people. I'm talking about thousands of doctors. And just because some fucking idiot goes, well, my boss told me to say this. Okay, medical misinformation gets a strike on the video. Or this gets a little fucking, whatever those stupid little things are on Facebook where it's essentially like, well, it's kind of true, but it's not true. Don't you think it's funny that when all the stuff about hydroxychloroquine came out, everyone was like, oh my God, that's so bad. Why would you ever do that? Even though that drug's been around for like 60 fucking years. But then they want to push a vaccine that hasn't even been out at all, barely fucking tested. And,
yes.
And then come out, hold on. And then after fucking the new president gets elected, they want to suddenly flip around and be like, hey, you know what? Actually, hydroxychloroquine's cool. Go ahead and use that, guys. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, not only that, but also I was reading something that if you take the vaccine, right, and like some professions are requiring that you take it, and you have a negative reaction like 10 years from now because you took the vaccine, nobody is liable for that.
Dude, they haven't been liable for any type of vaccine reaction since 1986.
Well, there you have it.
Moving on.
Yes. All right. Usava. We're moving on. All right. Let's see. I think that wraps up news. I did have one other question that I was going to ask, and this is like as I was gathering the news tonight, and I'm looking at all these news, links on news from Google News and Facebook and everything else. Have you gone on a news website or anything on the computer in a while? Not talking your smartphone, but a computer.
Yeah,
really.
I have.
Almost every site is just riddled with ads. It's just ads upon ads.
I know
Pop-ups.
YouTube is like that now.
Oh my
Worse
God.
than
Like,
it's ever
I
been.
mean, I have to, it's like I got to click through a maze of stuff just to see what I want to read.
I feel like it's always been like that, though.
No, it's bad, dude. Like, I mean, I was going through it. I'm like, it's like pop up. Then I scroll a little further. Up, video play. Get out of that. And I'm like reading one word at a time. It was driving me nuts. So
I know YouTube has been real bad lately. Like, I mean, every video you click on, videos that you would never see an ad on before, there's 2 ads. And I swear I might be the only person, but 5 seconds in YouTube land feels like 20 seconds. It doesn't feel like an actual 5 seconds.
yeah, I pay for YouTube Premium, so I don't have to watch the
you don't
ads.
have to worry about that.
Dude, I'm telling you, $15 has saved me lots of headache. And you know what? It's going into the people. I'm hoping it's going to content creators that I follow. So,
Gotcha.
No, it's really not. You're better off if you're gonna do that, either going to like their Patreon or their actual website
or Subscribe Star.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dan, let's turn the ship your way. What do you got?
All right. Well, have either one of you gentlemen heard of the murder of Kurt Sova?
Negative.
That sound familiar?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Well, surprisingly enough, and I never heard of it either until just a couple days ago, this actually happened right in our backyard. This happened not too far from where we all grew up. October 23rd, 1981. This happened in Newburgh Heights.
Okay.
So Kurt Sova, 17-year-old, went to and it was near Halloween, so he went to a Halloween party. And there's conflicting information. Some people say he got drunk. Some people say he didn't. Some people say he was drinking Everclear, which
Dan,
I've drank Everclear.
what was the year again? I apologize.
1981.
19. Okay.
Yep. So I don't know if either of you ever drink Everclear, but a couple shots of that, especially if it's straight Everclear, it's going to kick your ass. It's going to knock your ass out. But anyway, that was the story. So this is October 23rd. It's a Friday night. He skipped school, so he went to the party. Now, when they're starting to kind of wind down, everyone goes back in to get their coats to leave. He is gone. He went there with a friend. The friend could not find him. The Kurt was completely gone. So, of course, over the weekend, they contacted the police, the Newburgh Heights police. They started searching. They put flyers up, the parents I'm talking about, and nothing at all. No calls, no nothing. So in the meantime, though, one weird thing does happen while they're searching for this kid. A gentleman goes into a record store where one of the flyers of Kurt's face was on, one of the flyers in the store. And the guy tells the clerk behind the counter, he goes, you see that? And I'm paraphrasing this too. It was something along the lines. He said, you see that poster of that kid? You might as well take it down. They're going to find him dead in a couple days, and no one's going to know how he died. So, the clerk was like, okay, what the hell was that all about? Next day, there was a bouquet of flowers that were in the front step, and there was a note, a very strange note. I'll have to bring up what the note said. But anyway, the woman knew it was from the guy that was in the store earlier. She called the cops. Cops went to this guy's house, said he had nothing to do with anything with the disappearance. He's just a disturbed gentleman, right? So anyway, fast forward. 5 days later, in a ravine, not too far from where the party was at, Kurt's body is found. He's dead as can be. And they strange thing here too, and this goes back to what Buddha's been talking about the last couple episodes. This area was searched prior to right after he disappeared. This area was searched by the family, and Kurt's body was not there. So his body appeared there 5 days later, an area that was already searched. So anyway, they go ahead and he's missing his right shoe, which whatever, that doesn't mean anything there, but he's missing. It'll mean something later in this, when I'm done with this story, and I'll tell you why. But they take him, they do the autopsy. They do not know how this kid died. There is no trauma. He did not have enough alcohol in him to, cause any kind of alcohol poisoning. He did not have any underlying health issues. He did not die of a heart attack or stroke or anything like that. And the coroner, first they rule the death as a accidental death, something accidental. Then then later on they change it to, well, unknown. They don't really know how he died. They simply do not know how he died, which, remember, this is 1981. This isn't 1881. You'd think that they would, know how to figure, and I mean, I'm no medical examiner by any way. I know nothing about that stuff, but you would think that they could figure out how this kid died, especially since this is the other thing. He had only been dead 24 to 36 hours, what the coroner said. So that means he was not dead the whole time since the party ended. He had just died recently. All the more reason you'd think that they would be able to kind of figure out what happened to him. But anyway, the mother, contacted the person that did the party. First, the person said, I think the name was Susan, the woman that actually held the party. First, she said she didn't have the party. Then later on, a pizza delivery guy claimed, look, I actually delivered pizzas to this house, and they definitely were having a party there. Then when the mother called her again, the Susan girl, kind of said, we did have a party. There was some drinking. She said Kurt was not there though. He didn't go there at all. So there's already a lot of contradictions going on here at this point. Strangely enough, and by the way, real quick, John, I mentioned this earlier to you. The reason I mentioned you on this is this actually came from Unsolved Mysteries. It was on I think their second season of Unsolved Mysteries. They actually did this episode. They did this story.
I didn't, and I've watched every episode. I don't remember this one.
Yeah, and the reason I found it was the co-creator of Unsolved Mysteries. She compiled a list of I think it was the top 10 or top 15 stories that creeped her out in the entire run of this program. And this was one of those stories. It wasn't the top story, but it was definitely one of the stories. So anyway, getting back to that though. So they find him. They don't know how he died. They are just calling it they're just saying it was some kind of accidental death. And which is strange, that doesn't, especially if a loved one, you lost your loved one, you want to at least know how they died. And then with all the lying not lying, but with all the contradictions of what people saw. Now, to make this just this is where it really gets weird. And I think this is where the Unsolved Mysteries, co-creator kind of, says this is why this is kind of a weird story. So 3 months later, after all this is done, 13-year-old by the name of Eugene, I think it's Cavett, something like that, Cavett. He is found in a ravine, not in the same ravine, but he's found in another location, not too far from where Kurt was found, also dead, also missing his right shoe. Now, that's a little too much of a coincidence for me that both kids were missing their right shoe. And now I didn't really see too much on his cause of death. I think the coroner just said that he died as a result of falling down into this ravine. Now, did he fall down? Was he pushed down? Was he thrown down? But that was never solved. Neither one of these have been solved. And there's a lot of finger pointing. First, for one thing, the current Newburgh Heights police chief, they kind of reopened this up the last couple of years, by the way. So it was a cold case, but they reopened and looked at it. And even the current chief said this was not handled at all good by the police at that time in 1981. It just wasn't handled well. And it's just a really weird story. There's no answers. And, it's still, to this day, it's still an open case. They're still trying to figure this one out. And, and that's and I kind of went a little too far ahead. when they found his body is when they contacted that gentleman that left the bouquet of flowers and made that statement. And the police, quote unquote, said he had nothing to do with the death, that he was just a disturbed man, that he had nothing to do with it. But I have a feeling if this happened in today's world, the police wouldn't have just dropped it just like they did like that. I think that would have been handled a hell of a lot better than it was back then. But I never heard of this story. And again, and you guys never did. And it happened, literally, like I said, in our backyard.
Yeah. Reading that message.
You find it?
Yeah, it says roses are red, the sky is blue. They found him dead, and they will find you dead too. Jeez.
Yes.
But yeah,
that's what he wrote to her.
One. Yeah.
As long as we've lived in Cleveland our whole life, and I've never heard this story, and that's why I just think it's a weird story. I mean, how do you explain where was his body at for those days? He was alive. He wasn't dead, unless the coroner was mistaken, which they could have been. I mean, obviously they couldn't even figure out how he died, so they could have been mistaken on when he died. But
sure,
why was his body not there? And that's what Buddha's always talked about, like those stories where they search a section, he's not there, and then all of a sudden he's there 2 days later, 3 days later.
Yeah. Some other things here say both of his parents are now dead. 2 of his brothers are dead.
Yep.
His third brother is still alive looking for answers.
Correct.
Also, in February of 2020, Kurt's case was featured in the CrimeCon event CrowdSolve. In this event, 100 participants worked together to examine the case and help solve it. It is not known if any new information was covered. But
yeah, it's just and even the brother. I saw an interview with the brother on on YouTube, and he even stated, he goes, I don't know that somebody actually killed him. He could have died of something, and even the police at that time said somebody placed him there to be found. Because I guess this area, or this ravine where he was found, was an area that a lot of kids play, and in this area. So, he was definitely placed there, but was it an accident? Did he somehow die of alcohol poisoning, or no one will ever know? I don't think. No.
Yeah.
I mean, it said since he was at a party, it could have literally been like him and a couple of dudes just left, and then something happens. Even in, whatever it would be, whether he just died of natural causes, died of alcohol poisoning. I mean, they said they didn't actually find like blunt trauma or anything, right?
No, nothing. Nope.
So I mean,
no
so just assuming that he did die of something, whatever. If he had people with him, they could have just panicked and then been like, "Now we got to ditch the body."
That's
oh my God, this
possibility.
kid's dead. I don't know. It was the 80s,
Right.
so.
Right. And that's a possibility there, that could happen. Like I said, there was a little bit of alcohol found in him, but like they said, it was nowhere near enough to cause. But that's what kind of drives me crazy on the story, is that there was an autopsy done. When an autopsy is done, I mean, again, I could understand 100 years ago maybe them having trouble finding something, but 1981 was 40 years ago. I mean, you would think they could find. And what about the other kid? That's another thing. You don't forget the other kid that was found in the same area 3 months later.
I don't know,
In a
man.
ravine.
Maybe, just throwing this out there to go totally out there. What if it was a cop?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Cover, and that's why the cover up would be there.
right? Why not?
That's. I thought about that actually, or some kind of official,
or official,
pedophile
or relative,
official or something.
Like any of those things, really. Like, dude, you sit there and you say, like, I don't know if it was nowadays, the cops wouldn't have dropped it, dude. The amount of shit that comes out now about just corruption in not only in like politics, but in just police, any type of establishment, is just so eye-opening and so in your face now. It's 1,000 times more transparent now than it was in the 80s.
Well, right, but the thing is, if they wanted to try to drop it now, they couldn't get away with it because of social media and the internet, and there would be a huge outcry across the country.
Dude,
and
when is the last time you heard anything about Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein? You can't sit there and say cases can't go away. These are like international stories, and I bet you haven't heard a fucking thing.
Well, I don't know who the first person you mentioned is even.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I know about the Epstein, but yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
She
but
worked for him.
oh, did she? Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, did.
But just making the point that like shit can go away.
Oh yeah, well, and this one, this one kind of did. It seemed like it was just, to me, for everything I've looked at, after they were kind of brushed under the rug. I mean, they just kind of closed the case and just kept moving along, and until and even after the other kid died. I mean, when that other kid died, that because this one you could have said, well, okay, it could have been an accident, it could have been this, but when the other kid is found in a ravine in the same city with his missing shoe on the same, that's more than a coincidence. There's something weird going on. I saw someone say maybe it was a cult, some kind of cult in the area that was sacrificing kids. Who knows,
Yep. Well, there you have it. I don't know how to segue out of that one other than to.
Well, I don't know what answers there are to that one. I don't think anybody can answer it. It's just too weird.
Right. And so, still unsolved, and probably won't ever be solved.
Yep.
All right, Buddha, what you got?
Real quick, actually, to go back to that, did you guys know, not to that case in particular, did you know that like the amount of cases that have been solved, cold cases that have been solved by like random people on the internet has skyrocketed because of COVID? Since everyone's been at home, they've been like just releasing information, and there's like certain websites you can go to where it's just kind of like a hive mind kind of thing where everybody contributes, and they've been like solving a bunch of old cold cases that have just because people have nothing better to do and they've just been sitting around.
Damn.
That's incredible. It's incredible that the average Joe Schmo is sitting in their pajamas at home could what do you call it, solve a case that trained detectives and a major I don't know when it happened, obviously it could have happened 80 years ago, but that a trained police force can't solve.
Yeah, but sometimes like if you're too close to it, and you can't get like a fresh view of what, maybe some new information or something small that you overlooked because you're already like emotionally attached to it.
Well, you're not supposed to be emotionally attached as a cop. They train you that.
Well, dude, I mean, if you're investigating like child murders, how could you not be?
True. Yep.
But okay, even if you're not emotionally attached, I mean, like, how many times have you ever been trying to fix something at your house and you're just struggling, and then if you take a step back and come at it the next day, you're like, oh, this was so easy. All I had to do was that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that same concept.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I didn't literally mean like emotionally invested in it, but
right.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So Buddha, USS Indianapolis.
Yeah, so 1945, the USS Indianapolis was actually hauling the parts for the little boy atomic bomb, which everyone knows was later dropped in World War II. So they're traveling across the ocean. They deliver the parts, and on their way home, the return trip is August 6th, 1945. That doesn't matter. Anyway, so July 28th, Indianapolis sailed from July 28th, the Indianapolis sailed from Guam without an escort to meet the battleship USS Idaho in the Philippines. While it's on its way back, it ends up getting torpedoed by a submarine, and it gets hit, continues moving, gets hit by another torpedo, and it just is taking on water. It says the ship sank in just 12 minutes. So on this ship, there's about 1,200 people. After the ship sank, about 300 people went down with the ship. So now you have 900 people just out in the middle of the ocean. Now, not only is that a problem in itself, but they really weren't prepared for something like that to happen, so they had, a shortage of life rafts, a shortage of life jackets. And on top of just being like bruised, beaten, banged up, it says they were covered with fuel, and now they're all just kind of floundering around in the ocean. So by July 30th, it says mainly the survivors had just been left along bobbing in the water. Life rafts were scarce. And basically what they would do is anyone that didn't have life jackets on, they would try to just find the dead crewmen that had already drowned or succumbed to their injuries or whatever that were just floating, so they could take their life jackets off of them and then give them to, the other survivors. So what they did is they kind of all grouped together, assuming that it would be easier to, just stay afloat. Everyone has life jackets. If you don't, you can kind of hang on. Well, because everyone was all beat up and there was a bunch of loud noises and explosions and whatnot, and people start bleeding into the ocean, now they start getting surrounded by sharks. So they're out in the ocean in open water, nowhere to go. Everyone's just kind of bobbing around. Now the sharks slowly just start picking guys off. And it says the first night the sharks mainly focused on the floating dead. The survivors were starting to struggle just to, stay afloat. And what the problem with that is, all the movement and then like the still blood coming out and then just the dead bodies was starting to attract more and more sharks, because obviously they're feeling, they can just pick up on the movements and everything throughout the water. So after they had basically, whether the dead bodies had all just started to sink or started to float away, now they have these huddles of people that are still alive, and the sharks essentially are now just circling the living. So now they start picking off more and more of the living, because like I said, all the dead bodies are basically gone. Sorry. It says one group of the survivors made a mistake of opening up a can of Spam, and before they could taste it, the scent of meat actually drew a swarm of sharks around them. And after them being attacked, they just pitched the rest of the meat. So the sharks fed for days with no sign of rescue for the men. And the Navy intelligence had actually intercepted a message from the Japanese submarine that torpedoed the Indianapolis, describing how it had sunk an American battleship along the route that the Indianapolis was on. But the message was regarded by the Navy, assuming that it was just meant as a trick to lure in American rescue boats so that they could ambush them.
Wow.
Yeah. So now in the meantime, the Indianapolis survivors just, having already had been out in the ocean for a couple days, no food, no water, they started becoming dehydrated. It just started to wear on them. And then some of them just started hallucinating, started drinking salt water. And obviously, as you know, that ends up killing you. And as the days passed, many survivors succumbed to the heat and thirst. And like I said, compelled them to drink the seawater, which is basically just going to kill you anyway. So those who slaked those basically the guys that would just, be hallucinating or whatever and would just drink a bunch of salt water, they would just kind of go crazy. And then as they were either being picked off by a shark, or as they would eventually just kind of not have enough strength to hold on and just fall below, they started carrying or grabbing other guys that were in these huddles that they were in and just pulling them down with them. So this had gone on for 4 days from the initial accident. And it says 11 a.m. on the fourth day in the water, a Navy plane flying overhead spotted the Indianapolis survivors and radioed for help. Within hours, another seaplane manned by Lieutenant Adrian Marks returned to the scene and dropped raft and survival supplies. When he noticed that they were actually being attacked by sharks, he had one of those pontoon planes. He would actually come down and land in the water and try to pick up as many guys as possible, just so that he could fly the ones that were like in the worst shape, just fly them to safety. And there's an interview with one of the guys that was there, and he said like he didn't even notice it at the time, but when the dude came and landed, he blew out one of the engines and like busted one of the pontoons.
No.
What?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I mean, that didn't stop him from doing it, but it was just
Right.
kind of showing like he was like trying to get these dudes out.
Yeah.
So a little bit later after midnight, the USS Doyle arrives on the scene and helps to pull the last survivors from the water. Of the original 1,196 man crew, only 317 survived. And then estimates of the numbers who died from the sharks range from a few dozen to around 150. But obviously there's no real way to be sure who was pulled under, who just drowned or succumbed
Right.
and who was actually like grabbed and eaten by the sharks. And I think the part that's kind of crazy is, so the Navy had actually gotten SOS messages and they just disregarded them. And you would think that you would at least maybe send a plane to check on them. If someone was like, if you intercepted a message that said, hey, you know, we just shot down this, or we just, you know, blew up this ship, and you know that, okay, well, I received SOS messages and this ship was supposed to be on this route, you know, maybe we should check that out. The U.S. didn't report this for 2 weeks up until, because they allegedly they were afraid of talking about it because of what the ship was actually transporting. It's obviously being the atomic bomb. I don't remember what the news article was that came out when this actually was released, but essentially, it was that Japan surrendered. So when they dropped the bomb and then Japan surrendered, they ran this article about this happening with the USS Indianapolis the same day in hopes that the Japan surrendering would just kind of overshadow any of the negativity that they would receive for not going and sending rescue to help this ship that was blown up. Of course it worked. But another thing is the captain of the USS Indianapolis was the only captain during World War II to be court-martialed for having his ship sank, and they blamed it on that he didn't go in the required zigzag pattern that would actually make it harder for a sub to torpedo you.
Gotcha.
And basically there was a bunch of backlash towards the Navy because they were like, how can you blame this one guy, you know, for being torpedoed, and all this stuff happened when you guys just legit didn't even go out and send anyone to look or send a rescue when there was SOS. So I think it was the year 2000 or whatever it was many years later, that guy actually ended up getting that court-martial removed. Congress just basically looked at it and was like, this is stupid, get rid of that. But it didn't matter because at that point, that guy had already committed suicide in like the 1960s.
Jeez.
Wow.
So it was just crazy bad, just kind of all around. I mean, imagine being on a ship and it gets blown up and you're like, oh man, I totally survived that. And then like, you're in the ocean
sharks.
and you're you're like, well, at least I have, at least I got this life vest or this raft.
So firsthand, was that good?
Oh no, I was just going to say, and then like you notice a shark and then just not like one or two sharks, just like multiple sharks essentially just going into a feeding frenzy. And it said that the sharks would actually play like mind games with them where they would be at points where they would just kind of take turns attacking and then they would just stop and just wait so that the people would essentially just kind of be like, okay, it's clear, we're good. And then they would just come back in and just start doing it again. And it said the only food that they were actually able to use since they pitched all the spam is they found like some half rotten potatoes in some of the crates. And another of the issues that they were having is the life jackets were actually getting waterlogged. So they would have to like take the life jackets off, wring them out, and then throw them on the crates so the sun could dry them out. And then they would have to put them back on, like, because they were just getting too wet.
Jeez.
Which I actually didn't know that was a thing. Like, I thought the whole point of it is that it doesn't absorb water and it stays buoyant, but maybe it was different back in the 40s.
I don't know if they had, like, those nylon coatings that they put over them to keep them, like, waterproof. But
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Here's a first-hand account of the Indianapolis.
The submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief.
You're going to have to turn that up.
It was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady, just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 1,100 men went into the water. Vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer. You know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret, no distress signal had been sent. They didn't even list us overdue for a week. Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. You know,
Not really a first-hand account. It's Quint from Jaws, but
But that was actually that was actually one of the
he told
things
us
that.
he told the story better than you did.
Yeah, well, whatever. Got the point across.
Hey, mind you, he was drunk every time he did a take doing that scene.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was seriously some kind of witness or something.
There
I've
are
seen
a
those
couple
Jaws movies
videos.
in
There are a couple
ages.
videos of the dudes that were there.
Yeah, no, I've seen him, and it's funny because as soon as you said you were doing this tonight, it immediately made me think of Quint's speech because it's one of the most like iconic parts of the movie, not only because of like the subject matter, but also because of, like I said, he was completely hammered while filming the scene, but yet he delivers it almost so sincerely, like as if he was really there, and so. But yeah, it's just a horrifying story. Like your mission's accomplished and on your way back, that happens. And I can't imagine being stranded at sea. You mentioned also the story of too, where like, the SOS, signal that happened with the Titanic, where they sent out a distress call and the other ships that were in the area just kind of blew it off.
Well, they said the dude that actually picked him up from the other ship, like it was like his own order that made that he made to actually go and rescue them. Like he never got anything from any commanding officer.
Right.
Imagine all of that going on, and it's also in like obviously in wartime. Just like the amount of stress, like you can't add any more to it.
Well, yeah, and you think that like, okay, I survived, the ship sinking, but now I'm gonna die at wartime, by getting eaten to death. Like that's.
When I hear stories
Go
ahead, Dan.
Go on.
go ahead. I was just going to say, when I hear stories like that, it just makes you think, how, I mean, as much as we bitch about a lot of things, we all do, you hear stories like that of the people, generations past that were at war and were dealing like that story you just told. I mean, think about our problems we have and think about what those guys just went through and what they, what happened to them.
Right. Oh. All right. Well, Boo, you got anything else to add on that?
I mean, they literally just watched like 800 people that they were on a ship with just disappear.
Yeah, it's
317 come out too. That's funny. You mentioned that number, and I knew it right away just from the scene in the movie. So, crazy. All right, I'm gonna take the wheel here and turn over. So, have either of you guys ever heard the story of Dr. Herbert Hopkins and his encounter with the Men in Black?
Possibly.
Nope.
So, obviously, we know that there's a science fiction franchise and comic book based upon the Men in Black. Men in Black are also part of like the folklore of UFOs and alien encounters. Typically, what they think or what people think the Men in Black is a government agency that basically go and interrogate citizens who have had extraterrestrial encounters or have done research or found something that has to do with UFOs or aliens that might be true, and basically they're kind of put out there to scare people off from telling the truth or sharing information. Another theory is that they're actually aliens themselves. Another theory is that they're interdimensional beings conducting business throughout the multiverse. So, anyway, this story in particular is of a guy named Dr. Herbert Hopkins who lived in Maine and had an encounter with a man in black. And so it was in 1976. He was working on a UFO teleportation case in Maine. And one evening he got a phone call from someone who had claimed that they were the president of a New Jersey UFO research organization and wanted to talk with him about a case that he was working on at that time. And so he figured, hey, okay, no problem. And so right as he hung up the phone, he moved to the door to turn on the light so that he could greet the person that was going to come over, and the person was already at the door. So imagine taking a phone call and saying like, hey, you don't know me, I've never met you, but I'm interested in what you're working on. Could we potentially talk? And you going, yeah. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go turn the porch light on for this guy. And he's already standing at your door. And so this is back in 1976 when there are no phones or cell phones. It's only a landline. So how this happened is already, strange. So he lets the guy in his house, and he is dressed in a nicely pressed black suit and hat, a white shirt, and gray gloves. The man had white skin and bright red lips, and when he removed his hat, the doctor noticed that the man was not just bald, he had no hair on his entire body. Arms, face, head. He also had no eyebrows or eyelashes, and also as he sat with this guy, things began to get a little weirder. He also noticed that when he rubbed his mouth with the gloves, it revealed that his red lips were actually just painted on with lipstick.
Wow.
As the story goes on, he told Dr. Hopkins that he had Dr. Hopkins, basically they had a conversation and talked about what he was working on. He then defers to him, and the man in black says, hey, you have 2 coins in your pocket. And Dr. Hopkins is like, yeah, I do. Okay, well, so then the man in black asks him to remove one of them and place it in his hand, and said, watch this coin and nothing else. So the man in black has the coin in his hand, and as the doctor watched it, the coin began to blur, color shift from into like a blue hue or a yellow hue, and then all of a sudden the coin just disappeared. After that, basically the doctor was scared, and the guy kind of just led him to, drop what you're doing. Stop. Don't go there. Don't research this stuff. But as the meeting came to an end with this guy, he noticed that Dr. Hopkins noticed that the man's speech began to slur. It began to lag and slow down, and the man in black, basically ended the meeting, staggering a bit, like as if he had kind of lost energy. And so this kind of lends to that story or that theory that, maybe they're aliens or biological, machines to some degree. Not like not like a Terminator, but maybe like a manufactured machine, but on a biological level. And so, let's see here. In my nose. He never heard from the guy again after he left, and he was so startled by the event that he complied with his strange visitor request and basically destroyed all the research that he was working on at the time in regard to this UFO that had teleported. So, but yeah, this true stories of the Men in Black. I don't know. This one's kind of creepy because, again, it's not Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones coming to visit you. It's something else.
Did the guy come in a car, or how did he get there? Did he say, or?
I left that out of my notes. I believe, let's see here. Let me read a little further here. Man, staggering. Yeah. No, I don't have any notes of it. I mean, he could have. Typically, these guys that generally come to visit people are also in the typical government black sedan,
Right.
Ford or Chevy, I don't know, Dan, you tell me.
And now it's probably Toyota.
Oh, God.
Chevy and Ford don't make sedans anymore, so.
But yeah, so there was other couple of other stories I've read about people being visited by Men in Black. Another guy who owned an auto tinning shop, and I forget his name. They did an episode of Unsolved Mysteries where he had filmed UFOs, and these guys came up to him and said they were from a revenue service or agency, and said, "Hey, there's an issue with your income. We need you to come down to this office, fill out some paperwork." The guy went home and found that all of his tapes had been ransacked, and the Men in Black didn't find the tape, but somebody was in his house going through his personal home movies. So, I don't know. Buddha?
So do you think that there really is an area of the government that's doing this, or do you think it's something else?
I don't know. It's weird because, like, in the Men in Black, as the comic book lore goes, like, they're a government agency that works with the aliens. The stories that we read are kind of like more or less that these people are working with the aliens, but not necessarily on the government's behalf. It seems something a little more benevolent. So, I don't know. Definitely creepier than some of the pop culture stuff that we see. I tend to think, again, I've always been on the side of that this stuff is real, at least to me, only because, I don't know, kind of makes it interesting, and I'd like to think that there's things out there that we can't explain, nor can we wrap our heads around. And go ahead.
Is that man still alive? Hopkins or whatever his name was?
I'm not sure. I probably not. Again, this is in the 70s.
When did he give the interview, or when did he tell the story? I guess is the question.
What's that?
When did he tell the story of what happened? The man in Black.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. The story took place in 1976, so
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything of when this guy died, and it doesn't seem like he's available to talk to. So he might be have been dead for a while now. So, but
yeah, story is definitely weird. If it's true, that's far out.
yeah,
There's so many cases of this kind of stuff happening, though, like, documented. I mean, I don't know. Can you really, like, formally document this stuff? Is there, like, an actual database for it?
there is. I don't have the links, and I don't belong to any of that sort of online community. But the other thing that kind of was weird about this is that there's been several cases that I've read where the facial features of these guys, they all kind of are the same, where they don't look human, or if they do, their human features, or what we would call normal features, are essentially painted on or manufactured onto the face of these guys, and which is kind of creepy. It's like they're almost wearing like a human mask, But so
did you ever see that video of the one chick? She's like sitting at the desk, and I don't know if it was like a salon or it was some kind of office, and she's like sitting at the desk, and then like this dude walks in, like nondescript dude, black suit, and she just kind of like gets like real straight and starts moving more like an automaton, and just like picks up her stuff and then sets it in there and just like walks out. Did you ever see that video?
no.
It was like security cam footage.
I saw another security cam footage, now that you mention it, from like somewhere over in Asia, where this person became possessed in a store, like a department store aisle, and it was creepy. Like, and I don't know. Again, this could be totally manufactured, and like kind of like remember that one story we did about the woman that her son died, but it was all to kind of like put publicity around like a potential movie or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
But like this woman's like having a freak out moment, and they're thinking that she's possessed, And then all of a sudden she like belts out this scream, but like a shockwave happens, kind of like a nuclear bomb or something in the store, and all this stuff like falls off the shelves, like something that you would see out of one of those like horror thriller movies or whatnot. Like it was crazy. But again, I don't know if that was just some sort of like publicity stunt for a movie. But
makes you wonder where the Men in Black really originates from, though. I mean, you got to think that initially originates from the CIA, or obviously government itself. Like I always was under the impression Men in Black was government, high-level government that investigates the weird stuff, like the UFO sightings.
The X-Files.
Yeah, right. Kind of like the X-Files.
Is there any Men in Black around like the JFK thing? I know you've done a lot into JFK, but like not necessarily like the Men in Black, but guys that go in and kind of sweep things under the rug, and people that aren't identified that are at the scene.
Well, there was a lot of that. There was not necessarily like you said, Men in Black, but I mean, several of the witnesses mysteriously died within not even within 10 years of the assassination. Mysterious auto accidents, just weird people committing suicide that were not depressed, didn't leave any notes. Just a lot of weird deaths that happened. For example, one of the mafia guys in 1975, I forgot his name. He's Giancana from the Chicago Mafia. He was supposedly had information on JFK's assassination, and the FBI was and the police were supposedly, it was a day or so before he was to start going to court and testifying, someone got into his house and shot him 5 times in the head. With surveillance being on his house, by the way.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, and even like JFK Jr., his plane crashing, like it wasn't, it seemed like it wasn't it's very convenient, I would say.
Yeah, I never researched that. I know Robert Kennedy's assassination, in 1968, he was going to run for president. And, he got shot, and even there's even question if there was the government involved with getting rid of him, they supposedly got the assassin for him, but there's a lot of weird stuff around the JFK assassination. I never even went into even remotely any of it when I, talked about the potential assassins and that. There's a lot of stuff with that too that's weird.
Huh. I'm seeing here from Rolling Stone, QAnon is obsessed with John F. Kennedy Jr. QAnon followers think that JFK Jr. is coming back on the 4th of July and that he's an avid Trump supporter. This is a Rolling Stone for you.
Oh, boy.
You guys got anything else for this week?
I'm good.
Nah, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. Another week's gone by. I'm enjoying doing these on Thursday nights. Still a little rough around the edges. Still feel like I'm holding back a little bit as far as, talking about certain things. And, with cancel culture being a real thing, it's hard, your words being twisted, so you kind of are always talking through a filter. And so, that's where it gets bumpy here, and you kind of just roll with the punches. So, you guys got anything? Nothing? Close it out?
Still no.
All right. Well, I'm trying to see. I need to edit the song because what I wanted to do was do a sweet bumper and transition out of this, but I'm killing time for the next 10 seconds. So
you're trying to party with Uncle Bumpy?
Yeah. So for Dan Rady, Steve Gibson, I'm John Winston. Type 3TV. Over and out.